Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We can have a roll call, please.
Council President Michael Platt.
Present.
Councilperson Suzanne Souter. Present. Councilperson Russell Smith.
Present.
Councilperson Valerie Leary.
Present.
Councilperson Joseph Day is absent. Also present are Mayor Michael Coloranta, City Administrator William Barthel, Treasurer Janet Carlin, and City Solicitor Daniel Wasco.
Thank you. At this point, we'll take any public comments from the floor. You just talk from your seat. It's a small room. Just identify yourself.
Philip Gross, 1301 13th Street. The only agenda item that I'd like to comment on is the tourism and economic development position. I brought it up at the main meeting when it was addressed a few months ago. And my honest opinion, as well as others, seemed to be that the partnership was developed because I sat in on all the meetings in the beginning, and it seemed like it was developed for that purpose. So to take funds that really need to be put in other areas and other projects that council wants to use it for, as well as the river rise issues, flooding and whatever other issues that need to be addressed. I see zero reason, unless council can come up with a reason, to duplicate a job that seems to be already covered. Thank you.
You'll hear that in discussion later on tonight. Okay. That's new business. We have a motion and a discussion and a vote on expenditures of $750 to support National Night Out in Newcastle, sponsored by Councilperson Leary. Councilperson Leary, you want to explain?
Yes, we have a National Night Out coming up on August 2nd. The trustees have already funded the child ID kits, and that's what their funds are for. We have additional funds needed for Paul Freeberry for advertising, which we're getting a discounted nonprofit rate. We're having a dunk tank and a inflatable basketball hoop, and there was something else, and I'm sorry I didn't make my list today. Oh, and the Lions are doing the food. They're doing the hot dogs and the chips. Actually, Kona Ice, I've been in touch with Ed today, and he is going to be there, and he's donating the water ice. So that saves us from having to buy cookies or anything. But yeah, our expenditures are for those items I mentioned. And the dunk tank will be, we've got to decide this, 2 or 3 throws for $5, and the money raised from the dunk tank will go to the Brandywine SPCA.
Any questions?
And Mr. Freeberry is the musician, do I
He's
recall
the
correct?
DJ, yeah.
DJ.
American Pie. They gonna build a city directly, or? 'Cause I know on Facebook it's sponsored by the partnership, the Lions, and somebody else. I can't think.
Well,
of it.
the city was on the letter that went out to all.
Okay,
of
why
those,
is it just saying
yeah.
it wasn't on their Facebook page? I
Yeah,
didn't see that.
we didn't, I created the event, I did it at work, and I couldn't get all the logos on, so, but that's, it. We may not use the entire 750, and if we don't, I mean, it's to bring the receipts to the city to be reimbursed.
Okay,
Same thing as what the police department is doing as a trustee, they bring their receipts to get
fair enough.
reimbursed,
Let's do that.
and, so,
All right, all in favor? Aye.
right.
Any against? Motion passes. Okay, discussion and council discussion, motion and possible vote on resolution 2022-24, a resolution approving the vending request of the Peddler of Newcastle LLC as a vendor operating within the city limits of Newcastle. I have a motion to read the
So moved.
Second.
okay. Resolution 2022-24, a resolution approving the vending request of the Peddler of Newcastle LLC as a vendor operating within the city limits of Newcastle. Whereas the City of Newcastle Code requires licensing of vendors within the city of Newcastle, and whereas the Peddler of Newcastle has petitioned to be considered for a vendor's permit. It has supplied all the recommended documentation, including required insurance and the City of Newcastle business license. And whereas Peddler of Newcastle LLC is requesting to operate a flower cart in approved locations of the downtown area. Now, therefore, let it be resolved that the City of Newcastle hereby grants the Peddlers of Newcastle a vendor's permit to vend from a cart in the calendar year of 2022 within the following conditions. The vendor may operate. As council, do we want to put any conditions on this person? And let me explain. She's not here tonight, and she did supply us with all the documentation. It's just a little flower cart. It doesn't look like it'd be much bigger than, do you have it, right?
I do.
It doesn't look like it'd be much bigger than, actually, it's taller than a wagon, basically. It's kind of a neat idea. She just wants to make people happy. She has a letter here that everybody has seen. So I don't see put any restrictions on it.
Well, there are restrictions in the permit.
Permits,
They
right.
seem to be pretty well done.
Right,
The permit includes it says that in approved areas, approved locations, that's part of the permit, I assume. It tells where it's not. Excuse me, the things that she can't block traffic, et cetera, et cetera.
right,
But other than that, she could be anywhere in the city.
correct. That's the way I don't have a problem. If she wants to come out to Van Dyke or Washington Park or Buttonwood
No.
and sell flowers.
I don't have a
God bless her.
problem. I just
Yeah.
wanted to make sure I understood it.
Well, that's why I asked if we have to put any restriction on her, Mr. Marcel. Do we have to put any restrictions on her?
Well,
I mean, I'm blocking the street, the common sense stuff, I would assume.
Well, that's already
Right,
in
and
the
that's
permit.
Right, that's in there, right.
Not blocking the hot dog vendor spot.
not blocking the hot dog vendor spot. You could put restrictions. You could say, there are certain streets that, or whatever, if you were not to be in front of businesses, so you could place those types of restrictions if you wanted to. I don't get the impression, well, I shouldn't say, I've not met this lady, but, it sounds like she's, to your point, doing this and I asked Dan, what do you think?
If you're going to designate a specific location, council needs to approve it. And likewise, if you're going to prohibit a specific location, same thing. So you could approve this as a citywide permit to take her cart all over the place. Or the restriction could be not to interfere with any other licensed vendors. Something as simple as
Yeah,
that.
I think the common sense part is she's not gonna go where
Right.
she might not
Right,
sell.
exactly. I mean,
Well,
that's,
but I do have a question. I'm looking at the things she's not allowed. She's not allowed to do it on Day in Old Newcastle or Separation Day or during the antique show or Art of the Green or during the band concerts. Those seem to me like they might be big dates for her, and I can't see her being in competition with any of those events. So why are we restricting that?
Oh, good point.
that's an excellent point. My only concern with that would be. if we-
Traffic?
Well, not traffic, well, traffic's a good one too, but we put restrictions on other vendors for those days too.
Right, but like the food vendors are potentially in competition with the
Right.
food service that's provided as
Correct,
part of
right.
these other dates. Whereas nobody in any of these places is selling flowers that I'm aware of.
Well,
Mr.
maybe-
Karancha looks like he has.
Hello.
Mr. Mayor,
He thought about May Market, Arasaka. I better reach out to Arasaka.
Why?
there are 2 days events now, I mean,
But they do,
Yeah.
they sell flowers.
But they
Or
don't
2
sell
days a
cut
year.
flowers.
right.
She's selling cut flowers, not potted flowers, is my understanding of that.
Don't have.
Like if you want to something.
If there was, right, if there was any restrictions, I would put those 2 days on restrictions and wait.
It's May market and the rest of it. is-
Yeah,
I don't think it's gonna be a big deal, guys.
I would expect she could, I don't know if this is absolute, but for instance, if she approached folks running Separation Day and said, can I? If the people who were running that said, yeah, is that okay? Or does this restriction apply?
Well, any vendor has to contact the head of the event to be there. You just don't show up. And that's the
Right.
same for a Day in Old Newcastle or whatever.
Right.
But we're not permitting, we're not even allowing her to ask here. So if we took that out, then she's able to go ask those people, hey, can I be there?
Once again, that's a slippery slope, if you ask my opinion, because this is a standard permit for every vendor that asks for permission to do business within the city.
But most of our vendors are food vendors.
I would have never thought this come across our desk. That's what I'm saying. It's just one of those things. I mean, if we have a standard, maybe we should just keep it. If she can ask permission for those.
Or
days,
you could add without the not vending not permitted on those dates unless permitted by the organizers of the event.
Okay.
And that would leave it up to them.
Yeah. And I find this very appealing. I don't know if she has any experience in doing anything like this, but just the concept I find very appealing.
And we used to have a Huxtable, a mule on a wagon dragging vegetables street in Chester.
So to change the permit, oh, go ahead.
We would need to amend the resolution. To change the resolution, we need a motion to change the resolution to allow her to operate with permission on the restricted days. Is that correct, Mr. Wasco?
Yes, I'm trying to draft up some quick language for you.
By
Okay.
event organizer.
By the event organizer.
There's two conditions now. Citywide, provided no interference with licensed vendors. Second condition, vending permitted at city events. Is that a fair statement?
That's the first thing.
At city events with organizers' permission.
Mhm.
All right, I'll give this to you in a second. Okay, so the motion, you can adopt this, or you could like just be saying so moved, okay? So the motion would be to amend pending resolution 2022-24 to permit to grant the license to the vendor citywide, provided no interference with other licensed vendors and vending permitted at city events with the organizer's permission.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Vote on the full resolution.
So
All
moved.
in favor?
Hi.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Right, next is a discussion and approval of the contract and description for tourism and economic development position. Not sure how we go about this. If you want to read each one personally, if anything jumps off the page at someone, we'll start with the outcomes for the Tourism and Development Director Program draft copy. Everyone has one in front of them.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Or something, an annual plan has been established. I mean, this is one of the things that we want this person to do. An annual plan has been established with the state for the downtown development program. What does that mean? What are we asking the person to do?
Are we on,
on this-
we on the outcomes? Okay,
One,
fair enough.
2, 3, 4, fifth item.
Okay,
That was so this person could be a point of contact for the downtown development program. It's just like Bill right now is, or Marika is the contact. Marika is the contact and this
No,
person,
Marika's not the, I'm the
No.
contact.
oh, okay, you're the contact, but they go to Marika usually.
She does the processing of the,
Okay, so if this would, the point of contact would switch to this person and they would be, if they create the plan has been established, meaning they've created a relationship with the downtown development program at the state and will have the tools and the knowledge to be able to advise folks who come in to ask.
So we're saying that the person selected for this position needs to contact the state, learn what the regulations are and be prepared to answer questions from
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
Okay, is that annual plan being established doesn't say that to me, but maybe that's.
and I think that's to take that away from the city administrator, I think, because I think that would almost have to be done by resolution, because we appointed it.
I'm not sure
We
that
have-
that's what it was intended to begin with, that it would be taken away. It's just have somebody.
I think Mayor might explain that.
Somebody who has a regular contact with the state, take that, not the responsibility away from Bill, but, the actual work of, what the state is expecting and what we're expecting and, having a relationship with Bill. But right now, I'm not seeing that contact. When somebody comes to us, there is contact. But, is there anything the state can tell us to do that we can be more proactive in finding people who want to take advantage of the program?
So we're asking this person to promote the downtown development district.
That's basically
So
it.
That's
that,
a better.
Promote's a different word than being a point of contact.
right.
And that's not what it says. That's not.
But,
what it
but
says.
the
that's
annual
how she
plan
just
doesn't
explained it.
I
say,
did, and I did it wrong.
the annual plan doesn't say that to me either, maybe.
Okay.
Okay.
So let's reword that. What were you saying was the?
I would just say promote it.
Yeah, to promote.
I mean, 'cause
The operative word was promote.
So a contact being established with the state of downtown development program for promotion.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
that's.
So instead of annual plan, it would be contact
A contact.
Mhm.
established for purposes of promoting that program.
Yes.
That makes more sense to me.
But, and that, once again, even as a point of contact, that if you think about it, if I call and I ask this person, even Mr. Bay. If I call and I want questions on this, is this person gonna be as versed as say, I mean, Bill's been handling it for years. I don't know what the process is. But I'm just saying, I don't want somebody getting bad information out compared to, if they're not 100% versed in this. I mean, should that even be part of this? Mr. Bill?
If I may, the way, and by the way, this was written, just so everybody has a kind of a history or where this was derived from. This document was derived from Mr. Smith and Mrs. Leary. Okay, so, but that being said, how I would envision this would be, it would be basically like a team thing. In other words, we would initially get together, we would have those discussions, how this works, that type of thing. I'd introduce this person to Rick Farrell, who the city does have contact with. I think that was probably the name of the gentleman you were trying to come up with. Rick Farrell, who we do have a relationship with. Oh, in fact, he came to council two meetings ago.
Correct.
And so I really think it would be just kind of for this particular item, it would be, not that there wouldn't be communication for everything else on this list, but it would be more geared toward that type of relationship with what we're doing with the processing that on a higher level with what Marika does, but again, she just processes the things. As far as the programs and implementing them and that kind of thing, that's coming through me. And if you decide through this other person.
So perhaps we need to have working closely with the city administrator. The person in this position will
Promote.
promote, et cetera.
Working with the city administrator, the person will promote
That's-
the downtown development program.
That seems.
Or you're going to make it stronger and say, working at the direction of the city administrator.
I think that's better. I mean, because this could be, this,
Because I think Bill makes it, or somewhat you, I guess, Mr. Platt, made the point, if this person gives incorrect information to a potential participant in the downtown development program, perhaps in the beginning simply because of lack of knowledge and not having time to familiarize themselves with it. Whereas if,
Right, but I also think, and I agree with that, but I also think that part of the reason for doing this is, I think somebody walked into the office at one point and asked about doing something and was told businesses or residents, whichever one it was, I don't remember, were not participating in this program. They didn't know. So this is what we want to
This
eliminate
is
that.
just for residences, it's not for businesses.
No, you know what? It's a shame that I wasn't told that before when that happened, with all due respect to everybody in this room. Because had that happened, I would have had if it happened, and I would have had the ability to correct that immediately.
We don't even know who it was and that asked.
Well, then it never happened, in my opinion. I don't- You don't know. Well, no, I'm just saying because it's hearsay. And you're right, Mr.
But
Bartel. I
if
agree.
it did happen, and I would hope that somebody would come to me. and
It was
say,
Marika, and I was there.
Okay,
I mean,
Try not to
I
put
came
people
in with a
in the-
question from the booth house.
right.
And she said, well, no, you read this on this, it's just for residences, it's not for businesses. And so
Okay. Well, again, if that had happened.
that seemed to point out to me that we needed somebody who would be dealing with this more on a day-to-day basis.
And I go back to what Councilperson Sauer said. If you're making a budget and you're told you fit into this program and you don't, it could be an extremely costly mistake.
Well, that's why they're going to establish a relationship with Bill and the downtown development program at the state level to get all accurate
Right,
information.
but I think we need to formalize that this person works, I don't know, at the direction of, or
In conjunction with.
in conjunction with, or closely with, or somehow that
Okay.
Mr. Brunel is involved with this.
I see a firm schedule for tall ship visitation have been developed by 8 months. So we're only focusing on one ship
Tall ship visit.
visits. Well, okay, so that what is one ship, multiple visits. If my English is, I'm just asking.
The idea is to have a schedule in place for the spring. And this doesn't say whether it's one or many, but to have a firm schedule.
We would hope we can get some back, but, they actually start creating their schedule, I think, in the fall.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's important to get with them. And we had 4 or 5, 4, I'll go with 4 ships at one point, and, COVID comes along and,
Prior to the pandemic, we would send out letters and try to generate interest, to your point, more so in around November, December timeframe. And I think November timeframe, and we would follow up, with phone calls. And as you pointed out, we did have a number of ships that came. One came a couple of times. And then with the pandemic, there seemed to be, it was hard, it was next to impossible to attract people. And so, but I mean, we know the process. As to when they have to go out and try to get on their schedules.
So I remember years ago that when we used to coordinate with Philadelphia, and they would just drop anchors down here in the batteries when I first moved in, you walk down and see.
I think the Coast Guard
10,
used to
15
be out there
ships.
on Prisoners Island, didn't they? The Coast Guard cutter,
Okay.
but I don't know.
Mr. Day.
Yes.
Would you like to jump in on any of this right now? They came in late. We did approve the vendor's permit for the flower cart, just to let you know, and then you want to jump in on this?
I think I just wanted to say, I apologize, I was late. I had a Route 9 monitoring committee that I had to cover for work tonight. It ran a little longer than I thought it would, so.
Is it still there?
Did you get anything for us on Route 9?
Good, Joe.
I don't think I have anything I want to add to the economic tourist.
Before we get to the next page, I'm gonna say this is extremely vague. As a draft, I think there's a lot to be added to it. That's all I'm gonna say as far as that goes. Next is a tourism development director, develop a tourism marketing plan for the city of Newcastle.
Which I think kind of goes along with this contract. Those are points in there that they are supposed to develop certain things by certain dates. And these items are part of that, except for the 2-year budget down here. But that's a good thing to put in there.
And could someone refresh my memory? SWOT, I know it's strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and what's the T?
Threats.
Threats. Oh, okay.
What's the threats? Oh, that's like a police, okay.
Yeah, I knew there was something about obstacles, but
Right.
threats is a lot stronger.
Yeah, threats and-
But you gotta make a cool acronym, right?
That sounds better than this.
Gets out of hand.
had people storming this. But I
People
think,
storming the flower cart.
yeah, I think a lot of this
All the
here
time.
is part of this here, and this here gives deadline.
Okay. Okay, the last page is to create a metric to measure the development or tourism development success.
This is something we haven't had. It really could be quite valuable. I think I have to thank Mr. Losco for developing some of these metrics. I think it's this town is it's not easy to measure success in this town, and I think things like surveying business owners to measure uptake and grocery receipts. So, yeah, that's good. We don't have one place in town that everybody goes. Courthouse is probably the closest thing we have, but probably the wharf is probably but I think this has some very good ideas in here.
The one thing that I'll just, out of the experience of the restaurant week is, I asked our restaurants, 4 of the 6 restaurants participated in questioning. I popped into one and asked, and they just nodded their head, but that they had, certainly an increase in people in the restaurants during that week. And they said it was enough. We would not have wanted any more, but there were 150 additional customers that came in over what our normal
In
day is.
some places, we don't have metrics, or we have the 2-year gap with COVID.
Yeah.
And so it's a matter of,
But their overall satisfaction is, we had enough. I wouldn't have wanted any more. Our reservations were full. We had enough. So but that's not putting a gross receipt number on it or a number of people,
Mhm.
but they could tell the difference. And
Yeah,
that's how it
and
was
we
described.
can ask for percentages.
Right,
rather
like
than-
going next year, we can
Yeah.
probably get better since this is our first year out of COVID.
They're not going to tell us how much they took.
Well, no, we're not asking them to share their gross receipts. We're just asking them to say, did it go up by
Yeah.
10%, 20%?
Yeah.
That's what
whatever.
we want. All right.
Yeah.
I'll go back to my original theory. They did it without us. They did it with just good old American ingenuity.
I don't think for
And some
restaurant week it
advertising.
was that case.
It
but-
was Facebook advertising.
Can we,
And my other question is like the uptake in grocery receipts. That's a hard one to judge because it may not be people aren't in town. It may be because service stinks or the food's not that good. I mean, there's a lot of factors that turn into somebody's gross receipt. And and the point I'm going to make is, okay, so if my business is down 10%, then who do you blame? How do we blame? How do we assess that?
yeah,
I mean, I look at the Mercury and I give those guys a ton of credit. They're out there, they're advertising themselves. They're on fire. The place is packed, they're doing it themselves. And every time I'm in there, it's.
yeah, you're right. Absolutely, you're
And
absolutely right.
I'd hire them to promote the rest of the town because they're just that hot. And I don't know, like, as far as these measurements go, I really don't see, do we have a baseline website? Is it the city website? What website is it going to be that we're going to measure these things from?
Right, it talks about establishing, where is it at, which number is it? The primary website and contact number has been identified for all visitor
Not-
inquiries.
Not to build a new one,
Right,
but to coordinate the ones we have and make one primary. The one that comes up, number one from Google, and there are, ways that happens. That's the city
Right.
website. So, is that maybe reconstituted in a better way it's pretty good right now, but to go to different places for different things. But that is, right now, that's our primary website by default. And can we improve that to get to other websites? The problem we've had with others is, NCCP is doing one thing, Historical Society is doing another thing, and maybe the Reed House is doing another thing. How can we get everybody working together and have one gateway to the city of Newcastle. If you want to know about Newcastle, here's your gateway.
And I don't argue that, but I thought we weren't allowed to put private businesses on the city website.
As long as we go
Don't
through the
put private
state,
business.
as long as we go through the state, they do not allow us.
Not even links.
We can do links. We can
Okay,
do links.
so
We can
there
do- well,
could
in
be-
fact, we do a link. There's a link on it now where the mayor does an introduction of the city. And then, in fact, I'm meeting with those folks in 2 weeks because they're reintroducing the program. They go out and sell advertising to the local businesses. And if the businesses want to participate, we could do a link.
So could there be a tab that said things to do in Newcastle?
Yeah.
And under that, there'd be restaurants with links to the restaurants and
That's the idea.
historical
Yeah.
tours, and there'd be a link to the Historical Society and the Reed House and so on.
Yeah.
So we could do something like that would be.
Well, and that's, like I said, we are.
Yeah, to a certain
And that's-
extent,
Mhm.
you've got it. I think it could be improved, it could be massaged.
Mhm.
And the other websites certainly could be massaged. They're always just about ready to improve and never quite get there. And I think if we had this kind of coordination, that might push that a little further.
Things to do might be
Mhm.
something that
Just-
visitors would go to. The restaurant is more geared to residents.
A lot of city websites have a tab for residents and a tab for visitors
That's
or,
another option.
do you want to move here?
We
You
do.
know?
We have
We have the mayor doing that.
sometimes.
Circling back to what Mr. Barthel just said, if we're having somebody come in and sell advertisements, they're paid by the individuals. A former place I used to work at, like Ms. Carlin used to start a video and it plays on our website and.
How much is that worth?
It's a link.
Just wear sunglasses.
I didn't mean to embarrass you, man.
You did.
I'm in it too, so, but I'm just saying, so that's a paid site, so that's something you have to think about, because if they're gonna be linked in, they're gonna pay the advertisers to link into that site.
Yeah, a lot of questions and they haven't been answered. And we're not gonna answer them here.
But it would be legitimate to have a link. I mean, each
We'd be
restaurant,
able to do that.
each restaurant, I assume, has a website. And they're commercial, so they're paying for that, and they
Correct.
have advertisers or whatever they do. It's part of their business plan and their operation, but we could put a link to them
Yeah.
from the city.
You go down and look at Lewis's and it's got a link to their Airbnbs or their restaurants or whatever, or their events that go on or whatever.
Well,
So-
yeah, that would be the
Yeah.
calendar of events, which
Yeah.
is another item on here to
Yeah.
develop an annual calendar, which I think is excellent. That should be easily identifiable from the city website,
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
not buried under one of the other
Right,
tabs.
So I would say that's on 90%. I mean, I could give whoever puts our calendar together, even the printed one, I mean, it's on the website also. It's pretty accurate. Pretty much anything that comes up, it's on there. It doesn't miss too much.
It's not that it misses it, but you have to go down like 2 levels to find it. And so this is the kind of thing that I would assume someone whose expertise is in this area could suggest alterations to the existing website to make those kinds of things
Just-
easier for people to find.
Just make it as user friendly
Friendly as
as
possible.
possible.
Because if that's the one that's popping up number one, then that's the one that has to be massaged, as he said, and stuff, so.
Mr. Mayor.
Is the purpose of this to write a plan? Hire somebody to write a plan who knows what they're doing, because I'm listening to this and I deal with corporate marketing strategies all the time. Is it to hire a strategist to write a plan? Is it to write a plan and execute? Or is it to just execute? Because I'm hearing a combination, some people are talking strategy, some people are talking projects and tactics, but not everybody's saying the same thing.
We're looking for definitely execution on the end, but they're gonna have to develop some things.
Right.
So,
So they have to have, because the flow is strategy projects.
Right. Well, as you know, in meetings such as this, you always get, you start here and you end up, talking about specifics and concept and you go beyond concept, you get into specifics, and that's not where we want to be in this meeting. We just want to go at this level and hire somebody to work at that level and get us, part of that would be to get us to the specific level.
So
Right,
I could
right,
disagree,
right.
Mr. Mayor, 1 second, I disagree with this. We're spending taxpayers' money. I think we should be as pretty accurate as possible, spending their money.
This is ARPA money we're spending.
I was
It's
just
the
saying, we're,
taxpayer money to the
But
budget.
we're designing websites. We don't want to be designing websites.
I agree with that.
We're
I agree with
hiring
that. I
someone
agree with
for
that.
their
I agree with that.
expertise. So, I mean, if I hire someone to redo my kitchen, I'm not telling them how to do the plumbing because I'm not a plumber. That's why I hired this person. And so if we're hiring someone with expertise in public relations and promotion of a city, they're gonna give us the details. We're just giving them the metrics of the types of things that we're looking for, not the details of how to do the job. Because that's their expertise. That's why we're hiring.
Thank you for wrapping that up in a nice ball.
Mr. Mayor, you want to finish your statement?
I just feel like, that's kind of right, Suzanne, and I mean that no disrespect. I think you have to write, you actually have a fully fleshed out strategy. And to me, look, conceptually, everybody's talked about this for a long time. Okay. The idea conceptually has merit, okay? But you have to spend some money, have somebody take their time who has done this for other municipalities, other historic municipalities of this size. Write a strategy document. And from that will come the tactics, the events, the execution, and the metrics that are associated and appropriate for those kinds of things. But it has to start with a strategy first.
I think we tried that and it didn't work.
Because I think it immediately went to tactical, Russ, because I think that the person that was brought on got ping ponged around by different audiences and not surprisingly, everybody had a different point of view. And so there was this kind of bouncing around between strategy and very, very specific tactics, you know, and so it was a missed opportunity.
Right, I don't think we gave that person specific direction.
I'm correct. I
And
think
we're
so.
giving this person whom we hire more specific direction.
Yeah.
But again, a specific direction, like redo my kitchen, here's what I'd like,
Right.
but I'm not gonna tell you how to do it. You know, you can review with me what your plan is, you know, I'm gonna do this first and then I'm gonna do this and then this is how it's gonna end up. But that's how so
So if I combine the mayor and councilperson Souter's comments, just in my opinion, whoever is awarded this contract, the first thing that should be done is they should submit a plan to council with these guidelines saying, here's exactly how I'm going to do it. We gave them the guideline. We told them what color we wanted the cabinets painted. Now let them come back to us and say, here's how we're going to do it. So that should be the first step. It's you know, and then if that doesn't come back to us in 30 to 60 days, whatever timeline we put on it, I don't know what a reasonable, like you could probably use a better timeline,
Probably 90.
90 days, and then we can move forward with it.
I don't think anybody has an objection to asking the new person to come up with a plan for the entire year. But I definitely don't think we need a study to hire an economic development director.
Nobody asked for a study, just whoever, nobody mentioned the study. It was just whoever is awarded this contract, you know, report back to council and, you know, split the difference, you know, 45 days with a plan of how we're going to take this forward.
It's just organizing it in the right flow of things, right? I mean, you don't want to say, because I think the problem with the other effort on this regard a couple of years ago was it bounced. There were some people that were discussants with that provider who talked about larger strategic goals for the longer period of time. And then there were other conversations that were very, very specific about, you know, do press releases of this event, you know, this day, you know, it was very, very tactical. And then it wasn't tied to anything in some larger picture. So it was a little bit all over the map. And I think everybody that was part of that, there was some responsibility. So in order not to do that again, I just think my recommendation is, it's not going to take very long, especially if you have an individual, a firm, an organization, whatever it is, that drafts up a plan that embodies the larger goals, whatever you guys decide them to be, and it can identify some specifics, like It's not, the discussion is around remodeling a kitchen. Yes, I want cabinets. Yes, I need the refrigerator. You can put the elements that you want in there, and then they're gonna come back and say, you need this kind of cooktop, that kind of refrigerator. You don't need a Sub-Zero. You can do this. And then, by the way, you've got these kinds of things. You can draw more specifics from that after that document exists.
And these,
The,
go ahead. Russ.
the original idea would be we would get a contractor and sit down with that contractor and develop a plan. And I think that wasn't considered sufficient. So we built a plan. That's what this is. This is a plan. And it has dates on it. And then we have the metrics, the annual metrics. We've done it. We've got it. We said, this is what we want. We did a plan. And if this is not satisfactory, then we've done all this for nothing in the last year. And I'll give it to you. Thank you. Please.
Well,
Could you have it to us in 90 days?
But
Probably.
what he's saying is we're not the experts there, so whoever is
I'm not
going to be
qualified.
awarded this contract's going to
I
come
mean,
back and give us that.
if we could,
Because
we
yes,
could-
we're giving them everything we need. All they have to do is bake the cake for us.
if we could, if we could go out and hire a contractor for $100,000, that would be different. We had 40, and this is what we put together. And this is what we put together over a period of time. And if, we now want to take another direction, then that's a lot of work. And, maybe just say, okay, we failed. We have failed.
No, I don't think that.
I agree with Councilperson Leary there. I don't think we failed. To me, $40,000 is a lot of money. A lot of state employees, a lot of county employees that
No.
start that work don't make that. Now, and I know it's a different field, but
Not-
that's a lot of money. That's $800 a week.
That's not a lot for what Mike's talking about, professional.
I'm not arguing that, but it's still
It's coming-
$800
it's
a
not.
week.
It's not a lot for a professional. That's what Mike wants us to get. And that's what professional, that's gonna cost you $100,000.
Do you remember when we had the other person, there was a proposal that came in from a marketing organization whose name I forgot. And they were like, oh, we'll spend 6, I don't think this was the number, but it was a ridiculously low number, 6 hours a month on promoting and doing this and that and something else. And it was $120,000. So, I mean, I think, for what we're paying, I think we've laid it out. I do believe that whoever we hire sees what we're gonna want. They're gonna come up with a plan for it. And they have specific direction here. Here's what we want. How are you gonna get to it?
What if there are things that we don't know we should want? Because none of us are experts on this. Are we giving this person enough latitude, as the mayor said, to develop a strategy? We're hiring someone who presumably has the expertise that all of us lack.
That would probably be a good idea if they have input to that. I mean, certainly I would welcome it.
We're paying someone $40,000 for a year. And if we're giving them all these things to do, they may not have time to go into other directions.
Well, I think that person will take a look at everything and then come back. They can come back and report to council. Here's the plan, here's what's reasonable, here's what's not reasonable. But we can't decide that because we haven't hired that person. That's a conversation with that person.
But is this person, is Mr. Vitale going to be this person's boss, so to speak? Who do they report to? A person who's hired, to all of us, which gets us back into the multiple people, multiple mixed messages, diffuse directions, and nothing much gets done? Or do we have this person report to Mr. Bartel or the mayor or some, the Arts Council or, some specific organization? Or I'm just throwing out anything that pops into my head. I'm not suggesting them as viable options. But if the person doesn't have a single person to go to for direction, you're gonna run into the same problem that we had last time with
Well,
multiple
being a
people
ping
and
pong
multiple agendas.
where's the position description, not position description, the original resolution? We talked about direction. Bill is not the supervisor. This person is to work with Bill and not put another, it's not an employee. Bill would be the contract supervisor, just like he would be the contract supervisor for Cirillo. We had all that
In a
in
resolution.
the resolution. I don't see the resolution. These are outcomes coming out of that resolution.
And do we need a resolution now?
Or you've already adopted a resolution, are you seeking to amend it, you mean? I'm not following.
Yeah, I'm a little lost myself on that.
Well, didn't we have, there was a original resolution, and I think,
The reference was to
We
Mr.
don't need-
Bartel supervising but not managing. We talked about that.
Yeah.
Elsa and I. And aside from that, it was interviewing and collect recommendations from Mr. Bartel.
okay, so we don't need to do another resolution. So when Mr. Barthel provides the information of who he hires, we don't have to have another resolution.
I think we,
Well,
yes, we
You're
do.
gonna have to, you're gonna have to at least adopt the motion to approve the contract you want. And before you do that, like my recommendation to council, not a mandatory requirement, is that you know what contract you're gonna put in front of them. So that both the contractor knows what's expected of them and you know what to expect.
Okay.
And
But this
Mr.
is the contract under that resolution that's already been passed. This isn't something floating around on its own.
I'm not certain I know what to make of
But,
that.
all right, does this,
Well, we have, there is language in the resolution that defines the
It gave some vague general outlines as to what
right.
you
and
wanted.
this
Tourism director, economic
The
development, things of
contract
that nature.
out of that, this provides the specifics.
It certainly drills down better, that's for sure.
Right, that's right. It was, you know,
Mr. Losco, if memory serves me correct, in our June meeting, you did say there would have to be a resolution approving all this.
At least a motion, at least a motion. I don't want you,
No, you said resolution, sir. I looked at it before. I'm just,
Okay.
I looked it up. I listened to it before I came in.
the distinction isn't particularly material here. The real issue is, does council know what it's getting when it makes this hire? Does the contractor know what to do when he accepts the position? That's the issue. And then, so by doing that by motion or resolution, I'm looking for clarity. That's what I want council to have here. At least that's my recommendation. If you wanted to just adopt a motion to appoint Janet, let's say, as the tourism director tonight, you could do that. Is that smart? Of course not. Not because of Janet, but because there's no parameters for the
I
hire.
have my video.
We've now been picked on twice in this meeting.
If we don't know what we want, how can we pick the best person for the job?
Well, that's a
Because
great question.
Each person brings a different set of skills, probably overlapping to some extent since they're all in the same general area. But if to pick the best person for the job, we need to have a clearer idea of what we want from this person.
Which is listed in what we've just discussed.
Right,
this is,
right. But I guess the point I made a bit ago is, are we limiting this person to the things on this list? Or are we going to give them some flexibility to
that would be,
work from their knowledge and expertise to say, well, these things are all well and good, but have you thought about doing X, Y, and Z that none of us ever thought about?
And I think when you hire any professional, that professional comes in and evaluates what you're looking for them to do and adds to it. You know what I mean?
I would
So-
hope so. but-
I think this is a rough outline, and I don't think we're going to get the specifics. And I will agree, for $40,000, it's not like we're going out and hiring, you know, what I mean, we're not spending $100,000 on somebody to do this for what we are providing in salary. And this outline, I think somebody will be able to come in and get us off the ground and get us started. Now, maybe next year we improve upon that and we have some better reporting tools, but I think for now, at least, I think we have the basic outline of what we're looking for what kind of money we can provide.
I won't argue that. Okay, so we can work with this right now. I don't argue that a bit. My next question is, how's this contract executed? How do we pay them? Do we give them upfront
I
money?
don't think that's something that gets pinpointed after you hire the person, don't you?
Now, you would, if you're
Well, I
gonna
would
have an
like to-
agreement, they're gonna wanna know how they're getting paid, yes.
I mean, I would like to, if I was,
We're not designing a contract tonight because we don't even know technically who we're hiring. So the thing is, you offer a job and then you're gonna come in and say, here's how this is gonna be done or whatever. Russ, am I not explaining this? well?
I got you. No.
what the agenda says, discussion and approval of contract and job description.
Says discussion and approval city administrative
Job description.
recommendation to award the
We haven't gotten
contract.
that far yet, but I'm saying, this is approval on a contract. Like, how do we offer something to someone if we don't know how we're gonna do it? I mean, we're gonna pay them weekly, are we gonna pay them hourly, are we gonna pay them yearly, we gonna pay them quarterly, we gonna pay them? I mean, as an independent contractor, I bill every 30 days. That's what I do for a living.
So we'll find out from that person what they might like.
People tell me what they're paying. I don't tell them that.
I don't know. I think
Well,
you're
that's-
dialing down into
That I'm not down to Mr. Muskett
the-
agreed with.
the
We've
potatoes.
already approved $40,000, and how we cut that up, that's what we have to agree on. This person might want to be paid in a lump sum at the end of the period. Okay, I'm fine.
Or they might want to be paid monthly, or they might want to be paid bi-weekly. I would, they're a contractor. I mean,
They're a contractor. We tell them how they're gonna be paid.
well, I
that's
would
what-
like
that's
to
what city
think we
council
have a
does.
little bit better working relationship with the person than to.
I mean, I
And
do
I
feel like
think,
we're getting down into the weeds at this point on how we're gonna pay them, but I'll just say, let's just pay them monthly. We'll disperse the funds monthly.
Fair enough.
that's fine.
Okay, now, next item on the agenda is a discussion and approval from the city administrator recommending the award, I'm sorry, let me start. Discussion and approval on the city administration's recommendation to award the contract for tourism and economic development. Mr. Barthel, the floor is yours.
All right, thanks, Mr. Platt. I'm probably going to throw a little bit of a monkey wrench into this whole discussion at this point. After council said, go back and, put something together for this evening, I did go back and interview two of the three candidates, the original candidates that indicated they were interested in this position. I had spoken to the third candidate some time ago, and it was pretty clear that there was no reason to proceed further with that individual. In addition to those two candidates, I also spoke with Mike Connolly from the Newcastle Historic Society and had a couple of conversations with him. The thought being that they are the visitor center, and I thought that it would be I thought it would be a good idea to actually sit down and talk to him and see what his thoughts were on the position and whether or not there would be interest from him and the Historical Society to actually be the person or the vehicle, if you will, to manage this whole process and do exactly the things that you're talking about here. One of the things that we did talk about, and again, if you look at the outcomes for the Tourism and Development Director Program draft contract that, again, Mr. Smith put together, a lot of these things are already being done at that level, or I should say by the, by the Historical Society. They have personal relationships established with local and state tourism people. They have the relations established with all local and regional digital, or with local and regional digital and print media. They have a lot of these things that they can build upon. They have they have the ability to build upon these, and they have these things already started, many of them. The Gateway to Newcastle, Russ, where you talked about the webpage. The thought there being, again, that they've already begun to do many of these things, but can build upon. And then, maybe,
That's one of those websites that they're building.
okay, well, that's fine. Well, okay, fair enough, fair enough. But we have the ability now, if we're going to be paying them money to come in and do this, we would have to have the agreement that this is what that is going to become. Now, if I can just, and that's fine, if you guys.
No, I'm not.
I'm just saying, we would have that oversight to have that ability to if they didn't agree to do it and they didn't do the things, just as if we hired somebody for 40,000 a year and they didn't do what we wanted to do, I would think we would stop that contract. We would, we would figure out a way that, okay, this isn't working out. We're not going to continue further with this agreement.
And at that point, either way, there should be an exit clause in all these contracts, no matter.
Yeah, I believe there should be.
Okay.
Okay, the other thing that we talked about, well, I'm a little bit ahead of myself. If you look at the tourism development director for Newcastle, for the city of Newcastle, that next page that you guys, Valerie, this one. Okay,
Located at home.
right. Now, you had brought up the fact that, okay, we developed a 2-year budget for marketing efforts. Okay, this document was created by Mike Connolly. And he came, again, I met with him, he came back and said, okay, here are some of the things he was thinking about. And in our conversation, I said, one of the things we talked about was, okay, if you hire this person and we get this done, is there a way that you can also benefit as a visitor center by being open another day a week? Right now, they're open Wednesday through Sunday. I had initially thought there was enough money in the budget to allow them to be open another day, Tuesday through Sunday. Through my conversations with him, he alluded to the fact that, well, maybe there's a possibility that this could help them to be open 5 days, the Monday through Sunday with this person who would also do the things here that we talked about. One of the things you guys mentioned was, okay, maybe you go through this process, no matter who you hire, and benchmark marketing efforts of other cities of similar size or marketing efforts of other cities. Okay, Mike has indicated that in this document. It's about halfway down, benchmark marketing efforts of other cities, of similar size. They are, just to point out, a member of the Greater Wilmington Convention and Visitors Bureau already. They have these relationships. Can they improve? Can they get better? Absolutely. But this gives us a running start. This would give us a start on day one to start to see results from the things you've been talking about. If you do a 90-day, the concern I have is if you do a 90-day, it takes 90 days for somebody to come in and write this marketing plan. Okay, that's 3 months. You've got now 8 months, 9 months to then execute it. By doing this, we're looking at 2 years. And I will tell you, that was actually one of the things Mike had even commented to me. The nice thing about if we did this way was that we have 2 years, okay, to get this thing up and running and to continue it going forward. I would think, from your conversation about wasteful dollars, and I'm not saying it is, that's not what I meant, but personally, I think if this thing succeeds and in 12 months, you can't fund it again or don't fund it again because the next council, for whatever reason, decides not to, that would be a shame. I think what would even be more of a shame is that you take the attitude, if you will, that, well, if it doesn't work, we only spent 40,000 on it. So I think this gives you an opportunity to expand on a 2-year program, to do the things you're talking about, to have the control with these folks, with somebody that's already established. I mean, that's kind of,
Questions,
Sure.
Mr. Barthel?
Yeah, I've had a few conversations with Mike, and as you may remember, the Historical Society sort of reluctantly got into the visitor center business.
mhm,
And I've been really happy to find that Mike has embraced that role now. And I agree with you. I think that, Mike, now that he is where he is about that, he's already made that transition from just, we're a historical society, we
mhm,
take care of stuff.
right.
And we are the focal point for visitation in the city,
mhm,
and that we could take on a further role, whether that involves hiring somebody else or not, but that they could be our contractor,
mhm.
and that, Mike could work on all these good things that we're looking for, and he already, as you so correctly point out, he has those contacts, some of those contacts.
Some of them.
Probably not as maybe as active as we would like to see, but he knows who these people are and they know who he is. So I don't think this is a bad idea at all. I see it as a positive idea.
Appreciate that. But and just to clarify, Mike would not be the doer. He
Right.
would be the overseer of this person.
Right,
To-
right.
So
Yeah,
that he
'cause I
would,
was-
he
yeah.
would, so he would be the overseer of this. He would
Right,
take what
right.
he has already and, you know, work that with this new marketing person.
Yeah.
And expand not only what they're marketing now, but of course for the whole city, the things you guys are all talking
And
about.
then
Ms. Larry, you
as
have a comment?
Suzanne points out, there is that direct supervision, and we were talking about a looser organization and a contractor, contractee
Mhm.
sort of relationship, but I think this, it would be absolutely a tighter organization.
Ms. Leary, you have a comment?
Oh, yeah, because I had spoken to Mike Connolly after we got some of this started. So I've talked to him in the last 2 months, and he did say he didn't have the staff or anything to do it himself.
We
Because
would
he
be
doesn't
hiring
have
somebody.
enough, right, so, because originally we were thinking he was interested maybe in doing it just the Historic Society. But if we're hiring somebody to work with him,
Mhm.
I think that's a good thing too, but I don't see where they struggle to get people in there to staff the store right now. You know,
Understood.
so I think that, and nothing personal towards you at all either, but Mike is more for marketing of the town, and so I think, not that you don't want to market, that's not the right thing either. That's not your primary job. And that is part of his primary job, and if he had someone they could work together, they could work with, and so I see that as a good.
And that's why I.
And
that's
they
why-
don't have to be knocking on your door all the time either.
It would, I think we're agreeing. And so, and I think that he would bring somebody in, build upon what he's already doing. It would give him the opportunity, as you said, to open the store for 2 more days, hopefully, you know, as he put in that paragraph. We'll sit down and work out a budget that would allow for that.
But are you gonna give your recommendation on who?
That is my recommendation. Now, if council doesn't agree with that, I can certainly, I have.
So are we booting, are we tossing the hiring to him then?
No, we would work, he and I would work in conjunction. We had 2 really good conversations in that we would work together in terms of, okay, making sure that whoever is hired meets the requirements and meets the abilities that you guys all just discussed here for the last hour. Absolutely. And that it would expand upon the things he's doing already. And then he would, then Mike and I, or Mike and this other person, whoever they hire, you would still have the same relationship with the city, the DDD thing. And he and I talked about that because much of what he's already got, or much of the things that are on that list that Russ put together, as I said, he's in the process of doing, or has some sort of knowledge of, or working relationship with those folks. One of the things, obviously, that they don't is the DDD. But then that would be, and as I said, he and I and that person would work together with Rick Farrell to go ahead and again, expand that program and do the things you're talking about.
So why then would we start over with a hiring process rather than just make the recommendation to him already?
The people already interviewed, you mean, right?
Yeah,
You
why are we
could
gonna start it over when,
Well-
if this is a good idea, which we do
How do we do it?
agree.
How's it planned?
I'm sorry.
Mr. Day?
Sorry, I have a bunch of questions, just because I don't feel like I'm completely up to speed. So I hear what you're saying, that theoretically you would work with Mike as a historical society. We would fund it
Mm-hmm.
40,000, and that would be 2 years?
Yes,
Okay, so it would be $20,000 a year, so to speak.
correct.
We would fund it, that person would, do economic development, tourism stuff, administer DDD stuff, report to you and kind of Mike. I mean, for the DDD stuff, maybe you or Rick, and then for the other stuff, Mike. So, so I guess going to what Valerie's saying, do you envision that we're going to go out and advertise again? We're going to pick from the existing candidates? I mean, I know if I was Mike, I would want some input on the candidate we're selecting. I mean, if they're gonna be working, you know, for
Mhm.
him in the historical society, I could understand him wanting some input. But I also think to myself, so this person, would we be paying the paycheck or would the historical society?
We
We're
would
just
pay
gonna
the
give
money
them-
for the historical society.
Right.
So
So,
they would manage it, and I would not, maybe, I'm sorry, I confused you, I would not really be, I wouldn't be managing this person
Mhm.
per se, I'd be working with Mike and whomever to be, just to be sure that these things are being, the things that council wants to get done is getting done,
gotcha.
okay? And as to them, and to the cost, you know, okay, well, we're now down to 20,000. All right, the Reed House right now has an advertisement, they're looking for a full-time marketing person, marketing and events coordinator, and they're offering 42,000. The salary range is between 42,000 and 46,000, full-time. Okay, so in my conversation with Mike, he expressed to me, he basically said, look, they are good at, they are good at trying to bring in people who work in these types of hourly basis. And so we're thinking that the number there is a legitimate number. In other words, we're not just pulling the number out of the air to say we can do this for 2 years. Now, to your question about him, us starting all over, probably. I mean, there's no reason why he couldn't talk or we couldn't still talk to the other people that have applied for this. Not at all. There's no reason at all we couldn't do that and say, hey, listen, what do you think? This is what we're doing. This is how we're doing it. There's a kind of a new twist to the program. And if you're interested, great. So there's no reason at all we couldn't do that.
And he may have a different pool of people to pull from instead of just that the weekly. I didn't mean to take you.
No.
I
I just had one other question. So, if we lose a major customer in our industrial areas, is the Historical Society going to be okay with going out and, you know, under their umbrella, trying to seek an industrial user to go into one of the areas?
That was
Like
never,
part of economic development?
no, that was never part of the deal. Never. There was question about that because we had economic development in there, but it got slimmed down to DDD. We had questions about that from prospective applicants. Do you want us to, you know, fill up the industrial spaces? No. That's an entirely different set of skills.
I just assumed it was under economic development with the, you know, I mean, in the scope of this project or in the scope of this position.
No,
And I'm pretty sure I voiced that quite vocally at a few council meetings. I thought that was definitely part of it. I agree with Mr. Bay on that. If we want to go to the tourism director, that's okay. I'm just saying, if it was slimmed down, it should have been done publicly.
hello,
Hello.
hello.
But you know, I see this person, I was agreeing with you to a part, but there's this whole work, play, live in Newcastle motto that we've kind of unofficially adopted, you know, that we've had for the last few years. And I'm just hoping that, you know, I'm a little confused because when I talked to Mike, he wasn't interested, but apparently he wasn't up forthright with me. And my conversations have been recently with him, so, you know.
Well, I really can't comment. I don't know to what the context of the discussion was and if it was in the same realm of what we're talking about here. I went at it with him a little, perhaps I went at it with him a little bit differently.
And my
With a little
understanding,
bit of a different.
And 20 grand a year, if the Delaware Historic Society finds someone for 42 to 46, I'll be okay.
And I think one thing I want to clarify with Mr. Losco is we did pass a resolution and we did devote $40,000 to this purpose. There was some question about whether Bill could just go ahead and do that, but now that we've dedicated that money, can Bill now just negotiate with the Historical Society for spending that $40,000? We gave him a wide range of latitude when we settled on the contract as far as negotiating contracts.
I wouldn't get too hung up on the resolution that was previously adopted because you can amend anything you want. And the bottom line here is that you want to get to this has been an evolving situation, as we've all seen, right? So if you want Mr. Barthel to go and negotiate with candidates and with Mr. Conley about modifying this whole concept, about having somebody be a part-time employee for 2 days a week at the Historic Society, there's no reason why you can't give him that instruction right now. And if that's the direction you ultimately decide to go, you can either by motion, by resolution, or go in that direction.
Well, what you had advised us when we thought, well, $40,000, so Bill can go ahead and spend it. He's got that authority. And you said, no, that's not, you haven't authorized that.
This isn't like buying a case of copy paper. This is buying a professional's skills, and they were totally undetermined as to exactly what those skills and deliverables and measurables were going to be. That's what was really troubling me, and I felt that the council deserved to know exactly what it was buying.
But you advised us that we had to pass a resolution dedicating the money to that purpose, at least to that purpose generally. Now that we've done that and we've fulfilled that part of our obligation, can we then say to Bill, who has authority to negotiate contracts, Bill, go ahead, negotiate a contract. We don't have to get back down into the weeds on this.
No, because he has a guy.
We can just give this to Bill
I
and
agree.
say, here's our instruction. Would you please use this as your guide?
Without getting for any further approval from council on who's hired, what their duties are going to be, what their measurables and deliverables are going to be. That's what the instruction you want to give Mr. Barthel?
I don't know.
No, I'm asking you, is that what you're asking me to say? Is that okay?
I'm asking you. I mean, he negotiates other contracts.
Right.
And we have set out some specifics here. If we gave him these specifics, is that enough? Bill, we want to have Delaware Street repaved. Here's some specifics. We got a contract out.
Well, you'd be surprised. Those specifics get very specific.
I know.
Right.
When we drill down on the thing. But here's the only thing I would say to you. There's something fundamentally different from the resolution you adopted. That is an independent contractor being engaged by the city for a 1-year term for $40,000 to do certain things. And now what we're talking about is essentially a grant to the Historic Society to fund a part-time employee of the Historic Society. That's a different animal.
That's the question.
Now,
Okay.
you can certainly instruct him tonight that you would like him to further explore and negotiate that. But I would most definitely recommend that he take back that recommendation to council for a final okay.
Okay, that was the question.
Okay.
All right.
What makes it, I'm sorry,
Right.
what makes it so that the Historical Society can't act as a contractor?
Nothing.
So they're a contractor.
They could be the
If they want
contractor,
to take that money and
okay.
sub it out under his authority, they can do that.
It can
I
be done that
don't
way.
know, that's,
It certainly can be done that way. The only difference I would say, there would be no difference.
Right, so
You'd still require certain deliverables, hopefully certain metrics, so you can gauge success of the endeavor.
So building on what Mr. Day said and what Mr. Smith said, we would just approve the contract to this Historic Society with the measurables and deliverables that have been discussed tonight. And the city administrator negotiates the deal.
But I
We
understand,
asked him to negotiate
Right.
that
but I
and
understand.
come back.
Come back,
Come
yes,
back.
please come back.
So in other words, we're empowering him tonight to do further negotiations with Mr. Conley, to perhaps re-interview these two people to see if they're still interested, given the new configuration. Perhaps Mr. Conley has some other people in mind or other, ways he'd like to advertise it. Once they reach a decision, we want to hire person X, and this is what we want them to do, then they would come back to us with that final thing. Is that what we're saying?
That would work.
And Mr. Glasgow, and like I said, I did listen to the last meeting in June, and you did say that that would have to be done by resolution.
Okay.
Now, whether that was correct or not, and I know it was a kind of a.
Yeah, I was hit very quickly with it.
It was a
Tip-
good discussion, so
when I
either
think-
way we can do it. I'm fine with that. I think
My point at the time was, if you're gonna spend tens of thousands of dollars, that would normally require a little more formal decision, not just a simple motion. But you've already made the resolution to expend that money.
Okay,
So if you want to authorize Mr. Barthel to go and do further negotiations, let him come back. And whether you want me to do it by resolution or you want me to do it by motion, either way, if you want to do it by motion, I'll help you draft that and have it ready for you so that you can make that motion in a, well-stated way.
okay, but do we need a motion now? Because according to the agenda, it's to,
Agenda can change at any time. That's on the.
excuse me, thank you. I understand that. But the agenda was for him to make a recommendation and council to approve or disapprove. So we've come to a conclusion where we're very close as far as approving the city administrator to negotiate with the Historic Society and come back to council and report what's happening.
The final recommendation.
Recommendation.
I'd suggest you to make a motion to that effect.
Do I have a motion for that?
So moved.
Excuse me, 1 second. I'm sorry. We do have a motion on the floor though.
Okay, just real quick, I just wanted to interject. So before you make that motion or whatever, just so council is aware, obviously I would have, if I do, you decide to, and if you decide to go, say, okay, go back and talk to Mike, that kind of thing. Obviously, he and I can talk, but he is a board as well. Correct. Okay, so you understand that, whatever, okay, just wanted to make that clear.
So I guess my motion is that we tonight ask Mr. Barthel to enter into further conversations with Mr. Conley and make a decision as to who they would like to recommend for this position and what their duties and
No,
deliverables.
Just, we're going to award the contract to them and they can sub it out as long as they're giving us the measurables and deliverables
Okay.
to us. And if not, at any time, we'll have an exit clause in that contract where we can say, hey, we're not getting what we're paying
Okay,
for.
so we're
You're
authorizing him to negotiate with Mr. Conley,
correct.
work out how they're gonna do this, and then come back to us.
Come
for
back,
that.
basically come back with the proposed contract.
Correct,
With the
exactly.
proposed
With the
contract.
details work. yeah.
Whether that contract is a person X or simply the historical.
That's just handling. Okay. A motion on the floor. All in
Excuse me,
favor? Do I have a second?
Excuse me, would you mind totally restating that motion?
Gee,
I thought that was perfectly clear.
we already went round and through circles.
The motion on the floor is to have the city administrator meet with the Historic Society to enter into a contract, to hash out a contract. And upon agreement between those two parties, bringing it back to council for council's approval.
Negotiated contract.
Right. Okay, we still have a motion on the floor. Is it second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All against?
No,
Okay, the motion carries 4-1, and the next motion would be to
Adjourn.
adjourn this meeting. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Very productive.